Hello, everyone, and welcome to AEW Unrestricted, the official podcast of All Elite Wrestling. I am here with my co-hostess with the mostest, Will Washington. How you doing, buddy?
I'm great. I'm currently in
Whoa!
Florida, but whoa, what happened here? I didn't know that was going to happen.
It's one of those weird. I know that you're like a recovering Android guy, but like sometimes when you do like thumbs up and stuff, it like does weird things. You got to turn that off. Apple kind of pushes that on
Thank
people.
you, Apple.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes,
well, either way, I'm here in beautiful, sunny southern Florida, and I guess you could kind of call it a vacation because I'm like working right now.
Right.
So
clearly.
Yes. But otherwise, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great too, and I want to remind all of our listeners, if you're an oldie but a goodie, or if you're brand new, AEW Unrestricted is sponsored by Upper Deck. You can collect your favorite wrestlers. Woo, look at that. If you're watching the video version, you see all my shiny cards. You can collect all of your favorite wrestlers in the 2024 Upper Deck AEW. Start your trading card collection today. Unwrap autograph, memorabilia, or premium tech inserts. Visit upperdeck.com to learn more. And one of the things I love about this podcast is like when we have the people on, we'll like pull out their card, show them whatnot, show them their opponents. And it's funny because we've got a guest today who's actually faced a number of people who I have in this deck. Like most famously, we've got like a Kenny Omega. We've got a handful of others. Someone who's won a ton of championships who doesn't quite have his own Upper Deck card yet, but definitely, TBD, definitely coming. And who is that person, Will? Who is that person?
And here we have a man who seriously has way too many championships to list. It would take the entire podcast. So let's just say welcome to Speedball Mike Bailey. Speedball, thank you for being here on AEW Unrestricted. It is so great to not just have you on this show, but in AEW finally.
Seriously.
Well, thank y'all so much for having me. I'm really excited to do this.
Yeah, I feel like this has been a long time coming. It's just you kind of like know those people on the indies that have been there for a while, and you've had matches with plenty of our current talent previously. So it's just like, okay, so when's Speedball getting here? Like, this is inevitable, and you just have this little countdown clock. So you finally joined AEW in February. What did it mean to you, and kind of how did that whole thing happen?
So it was, of course, like, how did that whole thing happen? Well, it took 20 years is the main thing.
We'll get to that.
But, I mean, as you talked about, like, I've worked with probably a majority of the roster at this point. And clearly, I think it goes way back to, like, PWG. And when I first started doing all the biggest American independent promotions before I got banned from the U.S., which is something that I'm sure we'll get to later as well.
Oh, yeah.
But I was wrestling with a lot of people that like made up the initial and core roster of AEW by then. So, I mean, I feel like this was the goal for a long time, and this is clearly the kind of wrestling that I like and have always wanted to do ever since I first like came across it. I mean, ever since I first saw professional wrestling that was not what was happening on television in the 90s, I was like, oh, this is so much better. And I feel like AEW is finally presenting that on television in a real way. So, of course, I wanted to be part of it.
Well, I think the anticipation for it, pretty much from the moment you became a free agent, I think there was so much anticipation for where you were going to land and so much speculation. And when we dropped that first vignette for you coming to AEW, I think there wasn't just excitement amongst fans. There was excitement amongst the roster. Everybody was posting about them wanting to have a match with Speedball Mike Bailey. So it was really cool to see that all come together. What was your feeling like seeing that first vignette and realizing, okay, like you knew what was coming. We all knew what was coming, but to see it kind of start to come to fruition.
So it's a funny thing. I take great pride in guessing percentages, by which I mean, for example, so I did a ton of independent wrestling in the U.S. over the last 3 years, right? And it's always kind of a thing of, because I have to adjust my matches to the audience that's there, you kind of always have to guess how much of the audience knows me. And I know, like, this is for a promotion that's relatively new, and it's in a nightclub on a Saturday night. I don't see a lot of wrestling shirts. I assume that about half of the audience will not know who I am at all when I make my entrance, which is usually right.
Smart.
Like, I want to say, independent wrestling ballpark, 50% have no idea who Speedball Mike Bailey is, even though I am wrestling on television. I'm one of the bigger names. It doesn't matter. It's just how wrestling is consumed at the independent level. I truly didn't know what that percentage would be in AEW. I had no way to guess it, no way to figure that out. So when the vignette came out and I saw all the excitement, I was like, okay, this might end up being easier than I anticipated. And then when I finally debuted in Fresno, it was just as soon as the first Speedball came on at the beginning of my theme song.
Uh-huh.
And I heard the excitement there. I was like, great.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, like, it was awesome because, like, I got to be in the ring. Funny story about that in a second. I was in the ring and I had no idea what your music was going to sound like. So I'm just kind of watching the Tron and like waiting for that pop that's inevitably going to happen. And then I'm looking at it and out like by the left side, kind of like stage right, there's someone with a sign that says Speedball is all elite. And that's always the fun part, right? Like when fans follow along and are guessing what's going to happen. Because your first match was Beast Mortos versus TBD. And like that morning, Paul Turner's doing ref assignments. He's like, hey, is there anything you're interested in doing? I'm like, I would like to do the Beast Mortos match. Wink. And he goes, oh, okay. Because, I mean, you and Beast work all the time together. I'm like, yeah, I would love to do the Beast Mortos match. Wink. He's like, oh, okay, cool. And yeah, it was so awesome. I was really happy I got to be there. So on that topic, what was it like coming out and already seeing signs for you and wrestling Beast? Because I feel like that was a perfect first opponent.
It was. It's funny. I remember when I was a child, when Y2J first happened, right? And it wasn't even a thing. And there were so many signs in the crowd for Chris Jericho when he made his debut. And 10-year-old me was like, how is this possible? How could these people possibly have known? Right? But then seeing the same thing and like the amount of anticipation. And they announced the match yesterday, right? They announced wild card in this tournament, this international tournament, country TBD and opponent for Mortos TBD. And a lot of people were like, I think this might be Speedball. And
yeah.
I had the same reaction. I kind of watched it. They released the graphic when I was at the airport in LA waiting for my connection to go to Fresno. And I was like, I think this might be me. I was texting a couple of people like, I hope this is me. And I really did because, so I've wrestled Beast Mortos in different iterations several times. It was my first time wrestling the Beast Mortos, but I've wrestled two other guys that look and feel a lot the same, including my very first match when I first went to Mexico. Ooh. In AAA, which was in 2015, which is just under 10 years ago, because I think that was October. But he was, under a different name, part of my first ever match there, which was like, I didn't spend that much time. I spent 2 months in Mexico and went back another time after that. But that was my first like extended wrestling trip where I really made the crossover into... I mark that trip as the moment where I became a professional wrestler full-time, because I had recently quit my last full-time job and was officially doing pro wrestling for a living at that point. And it was a weird full circle moment to get to have another debut against Beast Mortos.
Well, you know, a big part of the debut and part of what's really appealed to fans has been the music. That, you know, I had been talking with Mikey Ruckus for weeks leading into it and talking about, you know, how the theme was going to come along. And I know you guys have been in contact about the whole thing and kind of the vibe you were looking for and going for a bit of an 80s hip hop vibe. You know, a lot of fans are very attached to you and Brass Monkey. We hear that all the time. And I thought for this to have kind of a, you know, to have that same feel, but at the same time, give you a bit of give it its own unique feel that's unique to you. I think it's one of the most unique themes on the roster. And I think it was perfect timing for it. How did you feel about the music the first time you heard it?
So I absolutely love it. I mean, I have the same relationship with Sway Archer, who makes all my gear and costumes. Is I just tell him, "Hey, make me a new set," and he's like, "Got it. I have an idea," and I'm like, "Awesome, let's roll with it." Mikey Ruckus, like, he kind of knew what he wanted. I think the first message he said, "Hey, I have this vision for this kind of Street Fighter, '80s hip hop kind of thing." And I was like, "Great. If you see it, if it's in your mind." If you look at Speedball Mike Bailey and like, I think this would fit perfectly, then there's no way I'm gonna like argue at all or like pitch anything. He's the man. His theme songs are always great, and if he has a specific vision, then of course we're running with it. And the main thing I wanted was something different. I want something unique. That's why I liked Brass Monkey as a theme song. More than I like the song, I like that it does not sound like a professional wrestling theme song at all.
Yes.
You would not expect it. You would not see it. The timing is all wrong from what you would expect, which is how I want people to feel about my wrestling as well. So I kind of want that to be mirrored before the match starts. My wrestling is weird. It's different. It's unconventional by design. You know, it's probably grown more conventional over time, but still, I always like that part of Brass Monkey, and I feel like this really does the same thing. It sounds different. It sets a different vibe for the match.
Awesome. Well, I mean, we're talking about unconventional wrestling style. We're gonna have to come back to your background a little bit, but first we got to take a quick break. So stay tuned here on AEW Unrestricted.
AEW Unrestricted, we're talking with Speedball Mike Bailey, newest acquisition to All Elite Wrestling. At the time we're recording this, last week you had just participated in a 4-way in Omaha with Ricochet, Mark Davis, and Orange Cassidy. Quite a barn burner. Those are 3 guys that I think if you had just put that combination together, it would have been solid. But then you add Speedball Mike Bailey to it, and all of a sudden it's 10 times bigger.
Yeah.
A clip that almost immediately went viral was you and Orange Cassidy exchanging kicks. This was so much fun. This is the kind of stuff that it may not be for everybody, but it is definitely for me. And I enjoy when you can kind of have that fun with the crowd. You're known for your unique kicks. Orange Cassidy is very much known for his unique kicks, and for you guys to kind of play off of each other, that was quite a spot. Tell me a little bit about the reaction to that and how that felt in that moment.
Yeah, I mean, so this is my thing about professional wrestling, right? Of course, I'm taking a huge detour here, but all art is subjective. There's a huge artistic component to professional wrestling, but also we have to be aware that as a professional wrestler, there's like an objective goal to your performance. Yeah. And my focus, like when I'm in the ring, there is there is an audience that paid there, that braved the snowstorm in Omaha to make it to the arena and see me, Orange Cassidy, and 2 others perform that night. So even if that spot is not for every single person in the universe, I'm completely okay with that, because you could hear the reaction in the arena. And for me, personally, as a performer, that is more than enough. I don't know what else I could possibly ask for. But that's exactly the reaction I was expecting and have been anticipating for a long time, for when me and Orange Cassidy would finally get into the ring together, because this is, of course, one of the matches that I wanted the most in AEW. Again, speaking of unique performers, people who really understand what makes them unique and used it to their advantage, I think that's the reason Orange Cassidy has been so popular and so good and such a big part of AEW. I mean, since the beginning, it's been unbelievable. And again, I can talk about him at length as a performer, but beyond that, everything he does at AEW that I don't know that people are aware of is really what makes him unique and special as an individual. And even though I'm still the new guy here, what seems to me like a completely indispensable part of AEW. But I thought that match was perfect. Again, you guys have really made it easy for me, because the Beast Mortos as a first opponent, and then going into that 4-way with 3 other people Mark Davis is someone that I've worked with a lot before. He and I have like a similar path in that we were both like exiled from our home countries and traveling the world, and kind of in parallel that way, where we did, we were in England specifically and a lot of Europe together a lot. So we got to work together a bunch. And I saw him and Kyle, everything they went through is amazing. And I've been following their careers for a long time. So working with Mark Davis in AEW is really special. And Ricochet, of course, is someone that I never got to be in the ring with before this, which is shocking.
Really?
Because we were around each other so much in PWG and across the world. But no, never, not even once, not even like a 6-man tag or a scramble. So that's one that I was specifically looking forward to. But the best part about that 4-way is that I got to mix it up just a little bit with all 3 of them, just enough to give a taste, but to let the audience know that there's so much more to come.
Nice little buffet of wrestling right there. It's like, I'm going to sample this, I'm going to sample this. But now there's all these combinations swirling in everyone's head of like, oh, I want to see this match one-on-one. I want to see this match one-on-one. On the topic of the kicks, it's well known, I think, by people when they even just see your gear that you have a martial arts background. And how did that transition the martial arts and wrestling, and how did those two mix? And what's your perspective of how that brings something different?
So I started doing Taekwondo when I was like 11 years old. And I didn't like want to do martial arts and then saw pro wrestling. It was like I had a friend who had started Taekwondo and was like, hey, you should come try it at class. And I was like, oh, this is going to be great when I start pro wrestling. Like pro wrestling was kind of always there first. But then, of course, for a long time, martial arts was really the priority, especially when I was too young to start pro wrestling. And then even when I had just started pro wrestling, I mean, I fell in love with Taekwondo immediately. And I would train as much as I could. When I was like between from 13 and 18, I would do all of the kids and the adults classes at the school. So I was training like 3 hours a day as much as I could. And I literally, that's all I did with the free time I had was just train. So by the time I started wrestling, even if I had made a conscious choice, I don't want to use the martial arts, I just want to be a classical pro wrestler, that would have been impossible. It was a part of me. It was how I moved. It was how I thought. I couldn't try to take it out. Like to this day, I can't play hacky sack because I just try to kick it like martial arts, and you have to do completely the opposite. You have to do weird inside, like bending your knee kicks in unnatural positions that I can't do at all. But the martial arts is just, it's part of me. It's part of who I am as a person, beyond even just like how I move and how I perform. Just the discipline and the way I break things down really all comes from Taekwondo. And that's really like affected my whole career as a professional wrestler. The fact that so before I even started wrestling, I was teaching Taekwondo, right? I was already a black belt when I started, and I was kind of teaching classes whenever I could. So I always kind of approached wrestling with that same mentality of trying to break it down and understand it in a way that I could teach it before I was good enough at it to be able to teach it in any reasonable way.
Well, and I think a cool thing about that is, there are a ton of wrestlers that have martial arts backgrounds, but I think yours is so uniquely ingrained into your identity, into who you are as a professional wrestler and what you do in the ring, that it's unlike anything anybody's ever seen. I was talking to a friend whose first exposure to you was your AEW debut, and they felt like you were like a wrestler they had never seen before. And I thought, as somebody who's been watching you for many, many years, I thought it was cool to watch somebody's eyes take that in and take in the fact that, oh my God, this is like a blend of martial arts and pro wrestling in a way that has never happened on my screen before. Was that kind of your goal with your integration of martial arts, to do it in a very unique way?
Yeah, absolutely. I think nothing good in pro wrestling happens just as an idea, as a thought. Everything happens organically, right? And it's kind of just being me to a much lesser degree early on, but still having the martial arts. And that was the part that people would always tell me. Like I've had throughout my whole career so many children come up to me after a show and go, "Oh, I'm a green belt in karate." You know what I mean? Or you remind me of a character from Mortal Kombat. So of course I leaned all the way into that.
Right.
And again, Sway Archer absolutely kills it and really understands the vision. So that's what I want people to see. I want them to be like, "Oh, this is exactly like an old school martial arts movie. This guy is right out of a arcade fighting game." That's exactly the image that I want people to see, and I'm with everyone that's been behind me, I'm glad I've been able to accomplish that, and I feel like the presentation coming into AEW is exactly where it should be, so I'm very happy with that.
I mean, presentation and from like an art perspective, like your silhouette is just different. The fact you don't even wear shoes in the ring makes you sort of stand out, and people go, "Wait a minute, who is this guy?" And it sort of creates that idea in their head of like, this is different than everything else I've seen, kind of going back to that buffet thing. And it's actually super smart. And there's oh man, I feel like we're going to definitely run out of time on this podcast because there's so much more to talk about, and I'm excited to get to it. So one more quick break and then more to talk about with Speedball Mike Bailey here on AEW Unrestricted. AEW Unrestricted, Aubrey and Will, and we are talking to one of the newest and most exciting signees at AEW, Speedball Mike Bailey. One of the things that we sort of have to talk about, the elephant in the room, is you had this amazing run on the indies, and then you sort of disappeared for a good 5 years, almost exactly 5 years, before you came back with a vengeance. And for those that don't know, you were actually banned from the US for a while. And can you kind of tell that story a little bit?
Well, so I wrestled in Canada for probably the first 10 years, 8 years of my career only in Canada. Then I started doing some US stuff, right? But when you start out in the US and you don't have a big name, it's very difficult to obtain an American work visa. I'm sure as people know, as is in the news right now. So you kind of just go wrestle, and then, you kind of just go do it. And when they ask at the border, "Are you going to work?" you say, "No, I'm just going to wrestle." And that kind of is fine most of the time. I'm just going to a wrestling show. Yeah. And that's fine 90% of the time until it isn't. And then I got stopped at the border, and they were like, "Oh, you did pro wrestling in the US? You're not allowed to come in here for 5 years," which is, terrible. We could talk about borders as a concept, but that would be a whole other podcast. And so that was a pretty big point in my career, because I kind of had an idea where my career was going, and I was seeing everyone that was where I was at kind of heading in the same direction, of getting onto one of the major American promotions at that point. And obviously for the next 5 years, that was not going to happen for me, which happens to a lot of wrestlers from around the world, a lot of Canadians, because again, that is the next logical point of progression in your career. Once you make it, once you start doing well in Canada and establishing yourself as someone people want to book, then people start wanting to book you in the US, so you have to go, but again, no visa, so it's very difficult. But it happens, what happened to me happens to so many Canadians that you probably have never heard of, for the reason that they were never able to make it to the US or gain enough momentum there. I was lucky enough that I had already started wrestling in a couple really high-profile places in the US, like PWG, and that allowed me to have enough steam to keep my career going outside of the US. So I had kind of a lot of options when that 5-year ban came up. The most obvious one was quit professional wrestling. And that's what I think most people would have done. That's what a lot of Canadians who are in the same situation did. No, I just decided I was going to go international and find wherever wrestling is and go do it there. So I made the conscious choice for the next 5 years to try to be in as many places as I possibly could. So I spent for the next probably 4 years, because then the pandemic happened and that stopped traveling. I would be 1 month in Canada, 1 month in Europe, 1 month in Japan, then 1 month back to Europe, then 1 month in Japan, then 1 month in Canada, and so on, which was even more challenging because it's around the time of that ban that I met who is today my wonderful wife, Veda Scott, who
I love Veda.
Veda, who is an American citizen, and we decided to have a go at making our relationship work. We had been friends for a long time, and she came up to Canada a couple of times, and we were like, can we make this work as a relationship, even though I can't come into the country where you live? And then we were kind of like, maybe if we travel together, we can make this work. So we did our best to arrange our travels, book ourselves in Europe together for a month, and then in Japan for a month, and then Veda would go back to the US for a month, and I would go to Canada, and then I'd go to Japan, and then we'd meet back together in Europe for another month. And that was the next 4 years of our life. It was a lot of work. But, I mean, we were waiting for the moment where I would finally be able to come back to the US and we could finally live together with no expiration date. And
I think it was really interesting.
Has been fantastic.
I mean, I love Veda to death. She's amazing. First time I met her on the Indies, and then learning that you two were together, I'm like, oh, this is a match made in heaven. This is wonderful. But then also feeling terrible knowing that you can't get to the States. Like, I was at the Defy show where Nicole Matthews got stuck at the border, and we're literally backstage going, oh no, she's going to get speedballed. Like, you became a verb,
that was a term. That became a term. Yep.
It did. Yep. It did. But I mean, eventually...
Shout out to Nicole Matthews, by the way, who made it to the other side and now has an American work visa and is doing some great stuff in the U.S. So, I mean, to be able to overcome that is absolutely fantastic.
Right. For those that are listening and may not be intimately aware with the visa situation with pro wrestlers, basically, if you're a U.S. citizen working a wrestling show in Canada, you're not required to have a visa, which is actually stated on their immigration site. I've had to tell border agents multiple times, like, no, it's listed on this page. Blah, blah, blah. Like, I print it out in my freaking glove box in my car. But it is not the same for you guys. You have to have work visas to legally work in the U.S. So it's a little bit tricky on both sides. And I've seen the stress and whatnot that people go through with me living so close to the border and working with so many Canadians on the Indies. It was constantly scary. So for you to kind of overcome that and then immediately hit the ground running, like, oh my God, okay, hit the ground running. And you mentioned a little bit PWG. You're involved with PWG before the band back in 2015. Your first appearance, you defeated Chris Hero, Tommy End before losing to Zack Sabre Jr. in the semifinals, Ebola, and then coming back in 2022 and having this incredible run against, Konosuke Takeshita. You had another match the year later with Daniel Garcia. We were literally naming AEW talent here, as we mentioned in segment 1. What is it like to be a part of PWG? Because in my opinion, it was sort of like the who's who of the indies made it there.
So it was really special. Like, you can't describe or recapture specifically how Reseda was. It was fantastic at the Globe, but really it was AEW. Like, in terms of just PWG was where the best wrestled.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right? All the best professional wrestlers in the world are having matches in a vacuum. And by that I mean, like, of course, people had been doing TV wrestling for years where it's all built around the storylines and long-term, weekly, episodic, televised pro wrestling, and requires for you to know who the characters are going into the match. But PWG was the peak of independent wrestling, and by independent wrestling I mean just having a match with no story, a match that still works when you don't have any idea of who the performers are and what they do. All the best people in the world at doing that very specific form of professional wrestling were in PWG at the time, and I mean now they're all in AEW, or most,
pretty
or
much.
A significant chunk. But it was really it's where I made the switch to a much higher level of professional wrestling. That's where I wrestled a lot of people that were like a lot better than me for a long time, and I had at that point some of the best matches of my career. And I say it was bittersweet because for those 5 years that I was out of the US, people would kind of keep referring to those matches. Like a match I had with Roderick Strong at PWG that people really, really liked and cited as their favorite Speedball Mike Bailey match, which made me really angry because in 2017, I was having main events in DDT against Konosuke Takeshita. And of course, years had gone by, I was a much better, much more polished wrestler than I was in PWG. So the fact that people still had that image of 2015 Speedball in mind when 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21 Speedball was so much better was kind of always bothered me. But it's a good thing that I then was able to get back in the US and redo those matches. I got to have another match with Roderick Strong. That was a rematch of our PWG one that was fantastic, which is another match that I'd love to have in AEW, by the way. But
Hey,
PWG is also where I had a match with Kenny Omega that absolutely changed my career and my perspective in professional wrestling. Just the way his mind worked and the ideas that he had when he first began to approach that match that we were having. I was like, whoa, this is really unique. I want to understand how he goes about this. And then when I got banned shortly thereafter, of course, that Kenny Omega match that he filmed in his, I don't know if it was his backyard or a cabin or whatever. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about. We've all seen it,
I don't.
right?
Yes, I do.
So, of course, Will does. It's a video that Kenny Omega sent to DDT Pro Wrestling of him wrestling just another local wrestler from Winnipeg, but they're not in a ring. They just kind of are in their gear, wrestling in a cabin, and he ends up throwing him off a pier into a lake. And it's fantastic. It's around. It's great. But it's like that kind of different vision of professional wrestling is what led him to go to DDT. So once I got banned, knowing that match with Kenny had such an impact on me as a professional wrestler, I was like, DDT just seems to make so much sense. And so I had that connection. I really pursued it and tried to make it work. And then I spent, probably most of those 5 years in Japan with DDT, really learning all the things that really, like my first match in DDT was a good vision inside of how Kenny's brain had worked in that PWG match. So I got to develop that for the next 5 years.
And honestly, when you think about what DDT does best, like it really laid the groundwork for what AEW was able to do during the pandemic, right? Because when you look at like Stadium Stampede, those who followed DDT were like, oh, this is a DDT match. But, it is one of those things that Kenny was able to bring over to AEW and make work in a setting where there were no fans. But when you knew what Kenny was able to do, like you said, on the tape, it's like, of course, this is what Kenny was able to bring to this setting and make for unique, I guess, at the time, cinematic pro wrestling was a way to kind of look at that.
So this is really like what DDT is what made me understand, like the difference between subjectively good professional wrestling and objectively good professional wrestling. In like, there's a lot of pro wrestling that's like the audience enjoys it because it's pro wrestling, and people that are able to get a crowd going in one setting. However, in DDT, sometimes you would have to perform on blue mats in the center of a shopping mall for people who are not interested at all in professional wrestling. And to be able to get these people, to turn these people into fans of DDT, to switch these people who didn't buy a ticket. They don't know who the performers are. They barely know what's happening, but they just know that it's cool as fuck. That's objectively good pro wrestling. And the idea to be able to use pro wrestling as an art form to bring it and put it in a completely different medium and make it work. And the fact that that's possible and that's something that they do regularly in DDT really made me look at pro wrestling in a different way. And I'm glad that mentality and that vision was brought across to AEW as well. And I really look forward to exploring that.
Well, one of the things that I think came out positively, and I want to shout out my buddy Righteous Reg, who was my co-host on Grapsity for a while. And I think you'll recall that at the beginning of 2023 on that show, I had Veda on the show and we were talking. And I think after the show, I was even talking to her about like, hey, I think I might be starting with AEW. Like, I think like a month later, I actually did. And like you were in the background the whole time. But, Reg was always a big follower of PWG. And, he talks about his years and years being a PWG follower. And once you came back to the States, he hadn't quite had a full grasp of what you were doing overseas. But once you came back to the States, I remember into the year 2022, he was like, oh, Wrestler of the Year is absolutely Speedball Mike Bailey. He's like, just the way he has come back as an entirely new performer. It's like it's a little piece of who we knew before, but he's so much more polished. He's so much more refined, and he's putting together some of the best work that people still aren't quite seeing yet. And that was 2022. And then 2023, again, you were just continuing to set these high marks and get in there with guys that were doing big things on TV. And now here we are, 2025. You're here in AEW. And just thinking about the fact that there was so much anticipation for you to get here. And it really all just came from the last 3 years. Like, I think that to me speaks to what you were able to accomplish in those 5 years away. So I guess the question that comes out of that is, how does it feel knowing that coming back and getting to perform the last 3 years kind of set the stage for people to see what Speedball Mike Bailey, who's had a 20-year career here, really is going to get to bring to TV now?
I think my biggest accomplishment in professional wrestling, as well as in life, is constant progress, is making every year better than the last. And that, of course, those 5 years outside of the U.S., that was the focus, right? I'm going to take everything I can from wrestling all over the world, learn as much as I can, get even better so that when I can come back to the U.S., I can finally, reach my goals. And then those 3 years after that were the same thing. Like, how much better can I get? What do I need to do in order to figure out American pro wrestling? And I feel like at the point where I'm at, coming to AEW and learning that style of professional wrestling and really going a lot deeper, I hope that I get to learn really how to build those stories and evolve the character in front of an audience that's really going to pay attention to the details and all the intricacies and be able to tell long-term stories with a payoff at the end is really what I feel is what I need the most in order to become a complete professional wrestler. So this is the perfect place for me to be right now. I also always look at my career as my eventual goal is to open I think a wrestling school sounds a little bit minimal, but I want a warehouse with a ring, and I want to train people and run shows and give young performers as a platform. And I feel like that the more I learn, the more I'm able to give back. I have a couple students of mine, people that I can say are students of mine, probably not exclusively me, other trainers as well, but that are absolutely tearing it up right now. And that makes me so happy. That is the most fulfilling thing. So when I look at my career in AEW, I believe that the further and higher I can make it, then that just gives my students an even higher benchmark, an even higher goal to reach. And my goal in my career will always be to have a student of mine outdo me at some point. So, I mean, I think joining AEW is the perfect way to make it where I want to.
Oh, man. So it's that old adage of leave pro wrestling better than you found it. And I think you were doing exactly that. Your heart is in the right place. It was a matter of time before you joined our family. And I'm so incredibly happy you're here. And I'm happy you were able to sit down and chat with us today. This was incredible.
Yeah, I had a blast. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, we could have gone like another freaking 4 hours. It was just so great.
I know. We'll have to do it again.
We will. We have to do it again.
Yes,
I'm so
absolutely,
excited.
we'll do it again.
Yeah. So thanks, Speedball. If you don't follow him on socials, please do. I know you stream quite often. You've got vlogs. You're all over the place. Super fascinating guy. Follow him on Instagram and X, Speedball Bailey. As a reminder, AEW Unrestricted is sponsored in part by Upper Deck. You can collect your favorite wrestlers in the 2024 Upper Deck and start your trading card collection today. Speedball Mike Bailey does not have a card yet, but you know he absolutely will. You can unwrap autographed memorabilia or premium tech inserts. Visit upperdeck.com to learn more. You can listen to and follow this podcast, AEW Unrestricted, on all of your favorite podcast apps. Check out the video episodes on YouTube. AEW Unrestricted, hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And don't forget AEW Dynamite night, TBS Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. And we stream on Max. AEW Collision live every Saturday on TNT. Honor Club, ROH, every Thursday. I'm Aubrey Edwards, along with my co-host Will Washington. Thank you so much for listening to AEW Unrestricted. Bye.